Hey, it's Angel Vane, and this is episode 75 of my author's diary. I am an author of crime thrillers for women, and every week I take you through the ups and downs that I go through as I try to write and publish new books. So don't forget to subscribe or follow me if you haven't done so already. Now, this week, I stopped writing, y'all. You know, it's National Novel Writing Month, and I stopped writing. I'm going to tell you why I stopped writing. I broke one of the cardinal rules of Nanowrimo. It's the classic advice that people always tell you when you're trying to do Nanowrimo. I broke that, and I crashed it onto the floor. That's how much I broke it, right? So first, let me give you a little insight into week 2, right? So the honeymoon is over in week 2. Like all the highs and excitement that you had for kicking off Nanowrimo, yeah, all of that just kind of fades away, and now you're in that grind. You're in the daily grind of trying to make sure that you get your word count in, tracking your words, figuring out, okay, when can I write, when can I not write, did I get enough writing done, am I on track, am I not on track? And so that grind is just grinding you down. What you're trying to do is get as close to 25,000 words by the end of week 2 as possible, because that's kind of the halfway mark, right? So if you're close to 25,000 words, or if you're at 25,000 words, if you're over 25,000 words, you're doing really, really great, and you're on track to making sure that you hit your 50,000 words by the time the end of November rolls around. So around Wednesday of this week, I was almost done with Act 1 of the novel that I'm writing for Nanowrimo, which is book 4, The Unexpected Hero in the Hero in Paradise series. It is the last book of the series. So around Wednesday, I only had 2 scenes left, and I would be finished with Act 1. And so I started writing one of them, and I was like, wait a minute, something's wrong. Something's really wrong here. And I'm looking at my outline, and I'm looking at what I wrote. I'm like, yeah, I wrote that. I wrote what's in the outline. And then I looked at it some more and said, wait a minute, I've actually put stuff that should be in 2 separate scenes, like the last 2 scenes of my outline, in one scene as I'm writing it. And I'm like, okay, stop. Something's not right here. And I really had to pause, and I had to stop writing, because I realized as I looked back at my outline, there was no conflict in those last 2 scenes. And so while I was writing them and I was flowing, I was getting the word count. Yeah, that would have been check done for Nanowrimo. That would have been a big fat X for my actual story, for the novel that I'm trying to write. Like, it was not working because there wasn't enough conflict in those scenes. Now, I will tell you that I enjoy writing the suspense. I enjoy writing them, dropping in on the enemy territory, fighting, guns blazing, and all that kind of stuff, trying to save somebody. Like, I love writing those scenes. I feel like I can come up with ideas for how to make those scenes interesting, give good conflict, and get them out of danger, right? So it was interesting because the last 2 scenes of my Act 1 are really romance heavy focused scene, and they're relationship heavy focused scene. And I'm looking at these scenes like, okay, well, I wrote what was in the outline, but why does this seem boring? It's boring, y'all. And I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not a good romance writer. Maybe I just need to fall back from that. Like, what do I do? So literally I stopped writing, and I said, pause. I have issues with these scenes, and I don't feel comfortable moving on until I fix them, because those scenes are critical, because that's what catapults me into Act 2A. And if those aren't working, then my Act 2A scenes are not going to actually fit right, because I didn't close out Act 1 appropriately. So what did I do? I broke the cardinal rule of Nanowrimo. The classic advice that you will always hear people tell you when you're trying to tackle NaNoWriMo, it is, don't be tempted to edit. Just get the words on the page and keep moving. You edit in December. You don't edit in November. You keep the train moving down the tracks. And y'all, I had not just stopped my train. I picked my train up off the tracks and took it to the train warehouse and said, let's look at this engine and let's try to break this engine apart. Like, I just literally, that's how much I just halted my story. And I went into full edit mode. Can you believe that? I am not supposed to do that as part of Nanowrimo, but I did. And the reason why I was comfortable doing this, knowing that, I was like, oh, you're not supposed to be editing yet. Girl who loves to revise and edit, stop it. You're not supposed to be doing this yet. And the reason why I felt comfortable switching into edit mode was because it gives me a lot of confidence that I actually completed Nanowrimo last year. I am batting 1,000. I am 1 for 1 on completing Nanowrimo. And knowing that, and knowing my personality, the drive, and how goal-oriented, execution-focused, to a deadline type of focused person I am, I don't believe that stopping and taking out 2 to 3 days to go into edit mode is going to stop me from accomplishing my 50,000 word goal. So that to me wasn't a big risk. I didn't really see it as a risk that would derail me from actually hitting 50,000 at the end of November. What I did see was a huge risk is falling into the trap that I fell into last year when I wrote Nanowrimo, when I hadn't nailed down my character motivations and the reasonableness as to why people did what they did or thought what they did. Those two things are the reason why when I look at that sweet romance draft that I wrote for last year, the first half does not fit with the second half. And I got a lot of work that would need to be done to piece those back together and make them fit, make the puzzle pieces fit. Now, for book 4, The Unexpected Hero of the Hero in Paradise series, I don't want to have to do that much work in December. I would rather, if I know, can already tell that I am running into an issue with some scenes, I want to fix them now. And if that means I have to take 2 or 3 days off of actually writing new stuff for Nanowrimo to make sure that what I have written right now really hangs together and it's not going to need a massive rewrite after November, then I felt like it was worth taking that risk. And that is exactly what I did. So here's the process that I went through when I hit the roadblock of, okay, these scenes are boring. There doesn't seem to be enough conflict in these scenes. What do I do? How do I fix this? So I mentioned to you guys before that I am a story grid person. I'm a story grid nerd. I use KM Whalen for the overview, the act structure, setting up all of my plot points in the act structure, and then I layer that on with story grid. But as you know, or maybe you don't know if you don't know what story grid is, but story grid basically is a building block, right? So the 5 critical things that are needed in an act are the same 5 critical things that are needed in a chapter, that are the same 5 critical things that are needed in a scene, and they're the same 5 critical things that are needed at the beat level. So you really can take those 5 components and build up your story with them. And so when I was faced with looking at all these words, I'd written about 1,700 words for this scene that I reread and was like, this is boring to me. If it's boring to me, and I've covered stuff that was supposed to be in 2 separate scenes all in one scene because it was already boring, and so I start pulling that stuff without even really realizing it, trying to make something happen in the scene. If that was already happening to me, then I know it's time to be like, that piece needs to be thrown into the trash. The first thing I started to think about was, okay, let me story grid this. What is my inciting incident? What is my progressive turning point complication? What is my crisis moment? What is my climax? What is my resolution? And I really started thinking through, and it really took me back into outline mode, the what if mode. What if they did this? What if they did that? What if this person thought this and it made them do this? And I literally start going through that process. I start looking at examples in other stories, okay, thinking about good romance stories that I truly liked and thought were so compelling. What are the things that they did at this moment towards the end of their act 1? What are some of the things in the ways that they make their characters interact with? So I really looked for inspiration, not just in literature, but also in movies and TV shows that I liked. And I grounded that in the story grid principles. And I realized that the primary issue that I had wasn't with what I was making happen in the scene. Yes, there were some things that I needed to tweak around what needed to happen in the scene, but that was less important than the point of view character. I was making certain things happen from Julian's point of view, where he knew what he was doing and he knew why. So that made the scene less interesting because there was no conflict for him. There was no risk for him. He was very comfortable with the decision that he was making. So as I wrote it from his point of view, it fell flat. Flipping that and writing it from Mina's perspective, she doesn't know what Julian is thinking and why he's doing things. And that is a bombshell for her. She is freaked out when she hears about what he is planning to do, and it rocks her world. And that, just that simple flip of the person with the secret or with the bombshell information, don't tell it from that person's point of view. Flip it to someone else's point of view who would be impacted by it. And all of a sudden, my scenes got life again. And I cranked through and I wrote those scenes and I revised them. I changed some settings. I added in some thunderstorms to match the mood of the scene, kind of making your setting match the mood. And like, then it all flowed. So by the time I got to Friday, I'm sitting at 20,827 words, and I'm feeling good about myself. I'm feeling myself. Then, yeah, I just love revising and editing too much. So then I said, well, how do you know you don't have any other problems in the earlier parts of Act 1 that you might want to tweak and fix before you move on to Act 2A? Are you really sure you want to go on and keep writing? Or should you go back through things and just make sure that everything is hanging together? So that's what I did. So then I doubled down on breaking the cardinal rule and that classic advice of do not edit, just get words on the page. I went back through 20,000 words, 12 scenes of what I had already written, and I basically did my first round of revision edits on that act. It took me a whole day to get through all of that, and after it was done, I felt like this was the best thing I could have done for myself, for this story, and for making sure that I accomplished NaNoWriMo. I have no regrets about going back and introducing some editing in between trying to complete NaNoWriMo, because now I really picked up on the subtle changes, and these are some minor changes, but they have bigger impacts later on. I have made subtle changes to character motivations. I have made some subtle changes to how things played out from the outline that really will impact the scenes that I plan for Act 2A, Act 2B, and Act 3. And so now I'm not going to have to do a massive overhaul rewrite once I figured that out in December. I have already brought it to my attention, brought it to the forefront of my mind. And now before I kick into writing Act 2A, I'm going to go back and read through those scenes and adjust them and edit them to, okay, well, this is what needs to happen. Now that needs to happen, because I truly know, okay, here is how the character's motivation has changed. Here are the subtle changes that I made to each one of these scenes. And here's how it impacts Act 2A. And here are the things that I need to change in the scenes that are upcoming. So when I start writing my Act 2A scenes, which I'm planning to start on them on Monday, tomorrow, because I'm going to go back through the rest of my outline and make those edits to make sure that the story is still flowing appropriately. I can do it without any regrets that I'm writing a bunch of words and I'm just going to end up throwing away in December, which I do not want to have to do. This is unique for me with this NaNoWriMo, because the other thing that I have going for me is that I am writing book 4 of a series, which means every character, every secondary character, the villain, all of these, character archetypes that are popping up in my book 4, I know these people inside and out. And I think that in itself is making it so much easier to get my word count done, to take these breaks to do some mini editing and know that it's not going to take me completely off track of hitting my 50,000 word goal. That just really makes things so much easier. And I'm really logging this for future reference, because I don't know that I want to tackle something brand new for NaNoWriMo. I think that really makes it a lot more difficult. And that's what I did last year. These were new characters. And again, I hadn't had enough time, and I didn't take enough time in October to truly flesh them out. And I really think it takes more than just 1 month, especially if you're starting a brand new story, to make sure that you know the characters, know their motivation, know their wounds, know how they're supposed to interact and behave with the different plot points. And that's not something that I think I want to tackle for NaNoWriMo. I think that I'm going to set things up strategically going forward, so that for NaNoWriMo, I'm writing a new novel, but it's with characters that I know extremely well. So after I broke all the rules and ignored the classic advice to not edit while I was writing, where did I end up for the end of week 2? Well, I'm happy to report that I actually increased my word count. So I ended up with, drum roll, that is a bad drum roll. Okay, I won't do that ever again. I ended up with 22,274 words at the end of week 2. That is only, let me give with my calculator. 2,726 words off of my goal. So I will be kicking off this week having to write 9 scenes again to get caught back up, to try to hit the 37,500 words that I should be at by the end of week 3. Now, if you want to continue to keep up with me and all the ups and downs that I go through as I try to write and publish new books, hit the subscribe button and don't forget to click that little silver bell so you won't miss when I'm doing a video, and I will see you next time.